Section 1 Introduction. We're going to discuss the role of large language models, LLMs, in real-world applications. These models are often referred to as general purpose and are used to mimic human behaviors. However, research has shown that these models only represent a limited and biased range of human knowledge and viewpoints. The data used to train these models greatly influences their behavior, so it's crucial to understand and document this data to use the models effectively. We believe it's equally important to look at how data is prepared before training and to document the effects of these preparation steps. The process of preparing data for training involves many decisions, which could be driven by performance on standard tests or by some idea of text quality. There are many assumptions in data preparation processes that haven't been thoroughly examined. Our paper explores how common data filtering practices might affect web content from various sources. We introduce a new dataset and framework, AboutMe, which documents the effects of data filtering on text related to social and geographic contexts. Studies of sociolinguistics in natural language processing, NLP, are limited by the lack of large-scale, self-reported sociodemographic information linked to language data. While text can be attributed to broad sources like Wikipedia, the backgrounds of content creators at more detailed levels are often unknown. In our study, we take advantage of the existing structure in web data. Some websites have pages specifically about the website creator, like an About Me page. This allows us to identify whose language is represented in the text scraped from the web on a large scale. From these About pages, we can determine their topical interests, whether they are individuals or organizations, their self-identified social roles, and their associated geographic locations. We apply 10 quality and English ID filters from previous literature on LLM development to these websites. We then examine which pages are removed or retained and investigate possible reasons for the filter's preferences. Our experiments reveal patterns in the filter's behavior related to aspects of the website's origins. We found that filters that use models to determine quality have implicit preferences for certain topics. This leads to text related to different roles and occupations being removed at different rates. Also, English content from non-English speaking regions of the world can be removed due to filtering methods that assume pages are in one language only. To support future research, we're making our code, data, and other resources available on GitHub. In the field of sociolinguistics, language is seen as a performance of one's social identity or group membership. The About pages on websites capture aspects of their creators' social identities that they consider important enough to mention in a summary. These self-descriptions can help identify meaningful differences in language varieties and use. We extract social aspects that are present across large sets of pages using automated methods, some of which we contribute as new approaches. We do not examine attributes such as race or gender, as these are less commonly explicitly stated on About pages and may increase the risk of inaccurate measurement. Our AboutMe dataset is derived from 24 public snapshots of Common Crawl collected between May 2020 and June 2023. We extract text using CCNet and remove duplicate URLs across all snapshots. Our study focuses on data preparation for LLMs that prioritize English or are intended to be monolingually English. Therefore, we limit our study to the English subset of the CCNet output, which are web pages that have a fast text English ID score greater than 0.5. From this Common Crawl data, we identify website hostnames that include an About page, which we define as URL paths containing About, About Me, About Us, or Bio. We then pair each About page with a random page on the same website. The AboutMe dataset thus contains both information about the creator S of a website and a sample of their textual content. First, we treat About pages as summaries of website creators' interests and topical focus. Following previous work on the unsupervised discovery of text domains, we embed About pages using unigram counts and TF-IDF and cluster them with balanced k-means. We set k equal to 50 and surface a wide range of topical clusters in our data, including design, finance, food, religion, and travel. This clustering step provides an initial broad overview of who and what is in About Me. Section Summary. Large language models, LLMs, are widely used in real-world applications, but their behavior is influenced by the limited and skewed set of human knowledge they are trained on. This paper emphasizes the importance of examining the data transformation steps prior to pre-training LLMs and documenting their implications. The authors introduce a new dataset and framework called AboutMe, which analyzes the effects of data filtering on web content from various sources, providing insights into the behavioral patterns and preferences of filtering approaches. Section 2.3 Individuals versus Organizations. Websites are typically created by either individuals, like bloggers, or organizations, such as businesses. We categorize web pages as being created by individuals if their URLs contain terms like About Me or Bio, while those labeled About Us are considered to be created by organizations. However, some pages are ambiguously labeled with About, so we use a binary random forest classifier to categorize these as either individuals or organizations. This classifier uses several features, such as the proportion of common pronouns on a page, the proportion of words identified as a person by a tool called Spacy, and the number of unique person-first tokens. Our classifier is quite accurate, with an average score of 89.2 out of 100, based on a 5-fold cross-validation on 10,000 examples per class. We find that 3/4 of the websites are created by organizations rather than individuals. Among individuals, we identify their social roles from their About pages. The prominence of a social role or job in a setting influences language use. Roles not only change the focus of the text, but also encourage the use of specific language styles. However, identifying roles can be tricky due to the ambiguity of language and the possibility of referring to others. So, we focus on explicit self-identification statements like, I am a designer, entrepreneur, and mother. We manually label a sample of 1,000 sentences from About pages that contain a variety of potential roles, and treat role extraction as a binary, sentence-level token classification task. We use a model called RobertaBase, which we fine-tune on our labeled data. Our best model achieves a score of 89.8 out of 100 when evaluated at the word level on a separate test set. With this approach, we can identify social roles on about 77.7% of all individuals' About pages. In terms of geography, our model's focus on English limits their ability to capture perspectives from people who write in other languages, especially those outside of Western, English-speaking countries. However, English is often used for intercultural communication and is sometimes seen as a global language. Therefore, our web-derived dataset includes a variety of geographic contexts where English is used. We identify locations on About pages using a tool called Mordecai3, which tags named locations, retrieves possible matches from a GeoNames index, and disambiguates them using textual context. For example, I'm from Alexandria, Virginia, would be identified as a location in the United States instead of Egypt. With this approach, we can link about 63.2% of websites to a country. This coverage is much higher than the 10.38% obtained by using country-specific top-level domains, like UK for the United Kingdom. We label each website with its most frequent country, yielding an overall website-level labeling accuracy of 91.0%. Due to the current global digital divide and our focus on English, the majority of websites are labeled with the United States and United Kingdom, with a long tail of other countries. For analysis, we group countries into 5 continental regions and 15 subregions as defined by the United Nations. Section Summary. The authors distinguish between individual and organizational websites based on the URLs and classify ambiguous pages using a binary random forest classifier. They extract self-identified social roles from individuals' About pages using a fine-tuned Roberta model, achieving a word-level F1 score of 0.898. They geoparse locations mentioned on About pages using Mordecai3, linking 63.2% of websites to a country and achieving an overall website-level labeling accuracy of 91.0%. Section 2.6 Summary. To summarize, the About Me websites cover a wide range of topics, with a significant number linked to locations in the United States. Most of these websites are created by organizations rather than individuals, and among the individual creators, many are involved in creative and media-related professions. However, our methods for analyzing these pages, while effective, do have some limitations and potential for error, which we will discuss later. In the process of preparing raw data for language learning models, LLMs, several steps are taken, including removing duplicates, cleaning up the data, and filtering out explicit content. Our study focuses on 2 specific filters: quality filtering and English language identification, Lang ID. We chose these filters because of the subjective nature of defining quality and the uncertainty around the robustness of lang ID across different language varieties. Web text can often contain noisy or low-quality content, so it's common to remove or downsample such text during LLM development. However, this can sometimes lead to performance issues if the filtering doesn't align with the objectives of the model. We also found that text from wealthier, more educated, and urban areas is less likely to be considered high quality by GPT-3's model-based quality filter. We further examine the effects of quality filtering on a larger scale and across different filters. Language identification is also a common step in data curation. Many LLMs are designed to focus only on English, and language-specific models use lang ID in the initial pre-processing stages. However, popular lang ID systems are not perfect, often due to mismatches between training and application domains and confusion between similar languages. We experiment with quality filters that score text based on their similarity to chosen, high-quality, reference corpora. We also compare this to a perplexity-based text scorer, which uses a language model trained on Wikipedia instead of a classifier. Another approach to quality filtering applies rule-based heuristics. We examine 19 document-level heuristics and thresholds that remove documents not meeting certain criteria related to document and word length, textual repetition, and frequencies of symbols and common English words. Our data is pre-filtered to documents that are likely English according to the fast text lang ID system. We also investigate whether the range of scores we observe with fast text is consistent with other model-based measurements of English used in LLM development. In the next section, we look at the effects of data filters on sampled web pages grouped by social dimensions identified from their About pages. We examine the degree of agreement among filters when scoring pages, and identify patterns that characterize their behavior. We also investigate whether filtering rates reflect systemic differences in power and status among social groups. We examine the outcome of model-based filters through two contrasting scenarios. First, we look at which pages are least affected if we were to keep only the documents within a top percentile of scores. Second, we look at which pages are most affected if we were to filter those at a very bottom percentile. We select top and bottom cutoff percentiles of 10% and 90%, though for some filters, a large number of score ties meant that cutoffs were 5.2% and 8.7%, respectively. For rule-based filters, we use cutoffs specified by a previous system called Gopher. Section Summary. The AboutMe websites cover a wide range of topics, with a majority of them being associated with locations in the United States. Most of the websites are created by organizations, but among individuals, those with creative and media-related occupations are the most common. However, the methods used to characterize these websites still have limitations and risks of mismeasurement, which are discussed in other sections of the paper. Section 4.1 Topical Interests. In Section 4.1, we discuss the topic of interest. We found that the way data filters rank topic clusters is consistent across different quality and English filters. When we compared the average English scores of topics across 4 language identification systems, we found a high level of agreement, average correlation coefficient of 0.874, with a standard deviation of 0.038, and all p-values less than 0.001. Interestingly, the perplexity of Wikipedia, a measure of how well a probability model predicts a sample, behaves similarly to the fast text language identification system, correlation coefficient of 0.860, p-value less than 0.001. We examined 20 random pages from highly filtered clusters, such as fashion, women, and online stores, which are often shopping websites. We found that pages with lower English scores list product names or specifications of individual products, and their original content may have been highly visual. Manual inspection of current versions of these websites, when available, supports this claim. Further down the list of commonly highly filtered topical interests are clusters related to photography and art. This suggests that while text-based language models aim to be comprehensive in knowledge, they exclude information that is primarily communicated via other forms of media. The method of filtering and the choice of reference corpora can influence what is considered quality. For example, classifiers trained to prefer web content linked from Reddit or Wikipedia, including Wiki Webbooks, OpenWeb, and Wikirefs, highly score news and media websites. In contrast, Wiki and Wiki Webbooks tend to prefer topics well represented on Wikipedia, such as entertainment and science. In section 4.2, we discuss the difference between individuals and organizations. Research suggests that colloquial language can be considered less desirable. So, we hypothesized that the language used by organizations may be considered higher quality and more English than that of individuals, as organizations may have more resources to professionally create their content. However, we found that web content created by individuals is widely preferred across all quality and English language identification filters. For example, Gopher removes 25.9% of web pages by individuals, and 28.3% of those by organizations. One reason for this pattern is that topics that receive overall low scores by data filters are dominated by organizations, such as businesses in the topical clusters products, quality, and online store. However, even when topics are fixed, organizations are still more likely to be removed by quality and language identification filters, with only wikirefs as an exception. Web pages by organizations tend to be shorter than those by individuals across and within topics, and their web pages include more non-alphabetic words, more repetition, and fewer words from Gopher's required list. All p-values less than 0.001, Mann-Whitney U-test. In section 4.3, we discuss social roles. Filters' social role preferences mirror those for topical interests. For example, programming occupations and software data are preferred by open web, and correspondent matches the often high-quality topic of news media. We calculated correlations between model-based filter scores and two metrics that reflect occupations' societal status: their O-net salary estimate and survey-based ratings of prestige. We found small yet significant relationships between occupational prestige and model-based quality scores. That is, pages linked to lower prestige occupations are filtered more by wiki webbooks, open web, wikirefs, wiki, and wiki_ppl. The degree to which pages' self-identified roles are expressed through their text affects filtering scores as well. Within each role's collection of web pages, we calculated the proportion of a page that contains vocabulary specific to that role. We found that roles that are generally favored by a filter tend to be favored even more if they contain more role-specific words, in contrast to roles that are scored lowest by a filter, which do not benefit from role-specific word use or are penalized further. Exceptions to this pattern are CLD2 and LangDetect, two language identification filters that score the vast majority, greater than 90%, of pages similarly. These findings suggest that caution may be needed when using pre-trained language models out of the box for tasks and applications that involve language specific to some domains. Section Summary. The section discusses the findings related to topical interests, individuals versus organizations, and social roles in the context of data filtering and language identification, LangID, systems. It highlights that text-based language models, LLMs, may exclude information primarily communicated through other media forms, and the choice of filtering method and reference corpora can influence what is considered quality. Surprisingly, web content created by individuals is preferred over that of organizations, possibly due to topics dominated by organizations receiving overall low scores. Additionally, filters' preferences for social roles align with topical interests, and there are small yet significant relationships between occupational prestige and model-based quality scores. Section 4.4 Geography. We've noticed a fascinating pattern in our data filters. They often assign lower scores to web pages originating from Asia. To put it in perspective, if a web page is linked to East Asia, it's 2.4 times more likely to be discarded by the CLD2 filter than if it's connected to Northern Europe. East Asia stands out because nearly a third of its websites fall into the low-scoring category of equipment topic. But this isn't just about topic differences. As you might expect, filters designed for English content tend to favor regions with a strong English-speaking presence, like North America, Northern Europe, and Australia and New Zealand. Regions with lower English scores often contain more non-English paragraphs, regardless of the language identification system used. We've found two main reasons why a page might not be considered English enough. First, the language identification system can sometimes mislabel English text, especially when it contains product names, people's names, or non-English place names. Second, some web pages are genuinely multilingual, either switching between languages or providing multiple translations of the same content. Language identification is typically applied at the document level during data curation, and some systems might assume that the input is monolingual. Non-English paragraphs in the AboutMe section often reflect the geography of the user. For example, Chinese in East Asia, Spanish in Latin America, and Polish in Eastern Europe. So, just choosing to communicate in English doesn't automatically qualify a web page for inclusion. The way English is used across and within web pages is also important. We also looked at whether the filtering of geographic locations is related to their global status. Previous research suggested that some natural language processing models might favor wealthier countries. However, we didn't find a significant link between a country's filter scores and its gross domestic product. Lastly, we wanted to understand what factors are most important during data filtering. Is it more about who you are, or where you're from? We ran several ordinary least squares regressions, using different filter scores as dependent variables, and factors like topical interests, continental regions, individual or organization status, core English-speaking status, and page length as independent variables. We found that page length generally has a positive effect on all model-based filter scores, except for wiki_PPL. Interestingly, many topical variables have a stronger impact on filter scores than other types of variables, especially among quality classifiers. Even after accounting for topic, Asia still has the most negative coefficients compared to other continental regions for all language identification filters.